about Matilda Lloyd. You can see her picture there up on the screen. And I'm very fortunate to have her as my guest today. But before we get to Matilda, I want to let you know a little bit about what's going on this week with studioHFL. Of course, we've got the live interview today. And then as part of the new radio show this Thursday night, 88.7 FM, The Diamond, 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. This week, my guest is Ronald Rahm. And that's a compilation of a couple of interviews that I've done with Ronnie over the last few years. And of course, spliced in with some music, mainly from Canadian brass. And that's going to be 8 o'clock Thursday night. Also, this coming April, I've got a terrific lineup. I just posted this today. I've got Eric Miyashiro, Sergei Nikaryakov, Mark Gould, and Gabriel DiMartino. So it's a great lineup for April, and that whole series is going to be sponsored by Austin Custom Brass. And let me put this up here real quick. Okay, my new World Trumpet Force shirt. Sold a few of these, but I like it. It was my design. My wife put this together for me, but the Ventilabis Magis just means push harder, which I think is a great a great logo motto for trumpet players. Let's see. ChopSaver, of course, has sponsored the March series of interviews. And if you want to get a discount on ChopSaver, your next order, you can go to chopsaver.com, use the coupon code HFL, and you can get 20% off your next order. Again, Dan Gosling, thank you for sponsoring March's live interview series. I really appreciate that. And let's see. Okay, so we are going to get to Matilda here. There you Okay. Hey, Matilda.
Hello.
Well, welcome. It's nice to see you again. We've chatted just for a few minutes before this started, but an official welcome. And let's see, 6 hours difference. It's 3 o'clock here in Indianapolis, Indiana, and it is 9 p.m. Where?
In Munich, in Germany.
That's that's over the big pond, right? I'm thinking you're British,
Absolutely.
right? Isn't that, guys, how you guys still refer to the Atlantic as the big pond?
Yeah, we do. We say across the pond.
Across the pond, right?
Yeah.
So, well, how have you been? I haven't seen you since Miami ITG. Of course, that was July 2019. And I know you've been busy, maybe not during 2020 a whole lot, but you're certainly picking back up as of late.
After ITG, it got really busy, and I was flying all around. So I was in Oklahoma, and then I was in South Africa for a tour, and I was in Germany, and things were really getting busy right up until March 2020, and then as for everyone else, everything ground to a halt.
But you're back on the road now.
Yeah, things are starting to look up. Sort of back towards the summer, and then into the next year or two, into the next season, people are beginning to sort of start booking things again. People are still very tentative. A lot is penciled in with, a few question marks after it in the diary. So, hopefully more things will be confirmed over the next few months. And yeah, I can get back to doing what I love, which ultimately is performing with other people, for other people. It's not quite so much fun when you're just stuck in a small practice room playing to yourself all day.
Right, or creating videos for Instagram, right? I mean, it's just not the same.
Yeah, and for some reason, just the recording is, even just doing little things like that for Instagram, it's a completely different experience, and definitely nowhere near as enjoyable as making live music is just so special. I think that's what this whole period has taught us, that live streams and recordings, they're a great substitute, but it's just not the same.
We miss our audience for sure, but there is something about the musicians that we share the stage with, right? I mean, that's, I think, as much of what we're missing as anything else.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the collaboration, and it's the atmosphere and the vibe that you create.
But okay, so even as a soloist, right? You're up front, but there's still that you feel that collaboration with whatever orchestra you're performing with, right?
Absolutely. I mean, people always say to me, like, what's your favorite, ensemble to play in? Do you prefer playing with piano or with organ or, string quintet? And I always say it's with orchestra, just because there's nothing like walking out on stage and having, between 30 and 50 people behind you there as one big like team, and making all that music together. There's nothing like it.
I remember the first time I ever stood in front of an orchestra, and all of that sound just right, just kind of
Yeah.
washes over you.
Yeah,
You
and
get
it's like having a big sort of blanket behind you, and I feel very comfortable on stage with so many people there as well, and particularly with something like the trumpet. If you grow up playing in orchestras like I did, you're always being told, trumpets, you're too loud, trumpets, you need to play quieter. You're always being put down most of the time. It's very, very rarely that you get to just kind of let it go and sing out and sort of soar over the top. When you're playing something like the Aretunian or the Weinberg or something like that with orchestra, you just get to let rip, and it's great.
well, the first time, well, I should say the only time I've heard you play live, of course, we're going to go back to that 2019 ITG conference in Miami. And forgive me, I don't recall the piece you played, but it was a piccolo trumpet piece.
Yeah, so it was a piece called Que le jour est beau, and it's by the composer Ivan Jevtic, who is half Serbian, half French, I think. And it's a piece that I actually discovered when I entered the Eric Orbier International Trumpet Competition in 2017, and it was the second round piece. And yeah, that was what I had to learn it for, and I absolutely love the piece. And I was very lucky because the composer came to the competition, and he really liked my interpretation of the piece, which was really great. That was really nice to hear after the second round, being one of the youngest as well in the competition, because it went up to 30. I think I was only 19 or 20 at the time. So yeah, it was really nice to have his sort of endorsement of my interpretation of the piece. And I think it's a really cool piece, because when people think of the piccolo trumpet, they often just associate it with, the Torellis and the Martinis and the little Baroque, beautiful, but the Baroque stuff. And so it was really cool to have something a bit more contemporary and a bit more meaty to sink your teeth into and to show off the piccolo.
Yeah, you say that, and I'm thinking, other than Alan Vizzuti, right? Some of his compositions include piccolo trumpet. Jim Stevenson, I'm thinking you're right. Most of what we think of piccolo is associated with Maurice André's, recordings. It's, of course, that's the stuff we should start on, right? And maybe we shouldn't start on, the piece that you performed. But was that with orchestra? I don't remember the ITG performance.
Yeah, it was with a string orchestra.
Strings, that's right.
Yeah, that's right. It was the Camerata or Cameristica something. Unfortunately, I can't remember the name. But they were great.
well, you were too. You were absolutely fabulous in that performance. And I was sitting front row. I was right in front of your bell.
Nice.
And of course, now I wanted to get there early that day or that night for that concert because, it was chock full of so many great players. But of course, I'm a huge fan of Sergei, and of course, he came out and did Ad Absurdum.
Yeah.
But maybe I shouldn't ask this. Were you terrified to know that, oh my gosh, I'm performing right before Sergei? Because it would have absolutely, I would have crumbled if they had said, by the way, you're gonna
well, yeah,
right
I don't think I found out the actual order of the concert until the day of, or maybe the day before. But so in my head, I was just feeling, when I was asked to play in that concert, I was just, super excited to come to ITG because I'd never had the opportunity to come before, and also just really honored to be included in the lineup. So I think it was more. I was obviously nervous. It was not obvious.
It
And
was
also
not.
I'd met Sergey backstage and like over the last couple of days, and also got on really, really nicely with Jason and Grant, who were playing the
Oh,
Copeland in that concert. And they were there and they were really like encouraging and supportive. And Sergey was as well backstage. It was a really, really nice atmosphere. Everyone was sort of once people had performed, they were waiting in the wings and listening to each other. So that was really nice.
you know, that was, I've had fun at a lot of ITG conferences, but that was one of the most rewarding in the sense that we all just, I mean, truly, it felt like everybody was just wanting to hang and talk and share, I mean, everybody, Sergey, Malcolm McNabb, I mean, you name it. And they were camped out in that atrium, right? The lobby
Yeah.
of the hotel. And, yeah, I
I
love
didn't
that.
leave the hotel for 5 days.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, there was no reason to, right? I mean, it was perfect. And it was too hot outside to go outside anyways. I
yeah, it
remember.
was. I think I managed to get to the beach. I think it was the day after the conference ended and my flight was in the evening. I went to the beach for like a couple of hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but yeah,
Uh,
it was really fun for me because, when you're in conservatoire and you often get sort of made fun of if you want to talk about trumpets and mouthpieces and things like that. And it was really fun to come to a place where that was just, people wanted to know what mouthpiece you play on and what warm-ups you do. And it was just really fun to kind of get to talk about the nitty-gritty trumpet nerd stuff in a situation where everyone was doing the same.
well, what do they talk about at conservatory? Solfege? I mean,
No, who even knows?
oh, okay. Well, I just was curious. You mentioned that. I thought maybe, well, I wonder if string players do the same thing. What kind of rosin
Maybe.
do you use? What's your brand of E string sort of thing? But so what kind of repertoire are you working on these days?
These days, I'm working on lots of different repertoire. I'm learning quite a lot of new pieces. I'm trying to learn some more pieces by female composers. One of my kind of pledges to myself going forwards is that in all of my recital programs, so recitals with organ or piano, I'm going to have at least one piece by a female composer. And I recently discovered Jeanine Rueff, who's a French sort of mid 20th century French composer.
Mm-hmm.
And she's written a lovely piece called Mobile, which I'm learning. And she's also written I think it's a sonatine or a sonatina.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm learning those at the moment. They're really, really great pieces. And I'm also working on the Zimmermann trumpet concerto, which is a beast.
I'm not familiar with that. Is that a 21st century or?
Yes,
Yeah.
no, it's 20th century. It's subtitled "Nobody Knows the Trouble I See," and it's all based around that tune. But the tune is fairly unrecognizable most of the time. You do get to get to play it at the end, but it's tough. There's not a lot of time off the face.
That's kind of the big thing, right? I mean, we could, as trumpet players, we could really play a lot of the repertoire as long as the composer gives us time to get the horn off the chops for a little bit, right?
Just a couple of bars rest is all you need. It makes a big difference.
Yeah. Right. To either, whew, I'm glad I made it through that, or even just to catch your breath for a second.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned that you've got some things coming up in the Netherlands and in Sweden.
Yes.
What are you going to be performing while you're there?
So I think in Rotterdam, so it'll be the first time that I perform in the Netherlands, which is really exciting, and that's Haydn. And then I'm actually really looking forward to a tour in Sweden at the end of this year with the Camerata Nordica, and I'm going to be playing the Shostakovich Concerto No. 1 for trumpet and piano, which for the first time, be my first time performing that. And it's a piece that I've been wanting to perform for years. So I'm super excited. I'm an absolute diehard Shostakovich fan, studied it at school, studied Shostakovich at uni. So I'm very excited.
I got to perform that one a few years ago. And yeah, it's a little bit terrifying because you have to wait and you actually have to count, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you should know the piece, right? But you've got all these rests, and of course the piano part is fantastic. It's easy to get kind of drawn in and just be like, oh, isn't this fun? Oh no, I've got to play. But yeah, what a great piece. Of course, you had mentioned before we started here too that you have a trumpet ensemble, Solace.
Yes, that's right. So I founded this trumpet ensemble probably a couple of years ago now. And we've been doing a few concerts. We did one at Snape Maltings in the UK just before Christmas, we managed to sneak that one in before the next lockdown, which was really, really great. And so we've got a few concerts coming up in the summer, which will be really nice. And it's so much fun just to play with some of your best friends and make music together. And I think trumpet ensembles are underrated ensemble.
I agree, but I think what's helping too is that we're getting more and more diverse repertoire out there too. So it's not all the same loud, right? Everybody voiced so closely together. There's a lot of variety showing up in that.
Yeah.
How many people in your group?
So there's 5 of us. So 4 regular trumpet players, and then we've got one trombonist who plays a flugelbone, which I'd never even heard of. He originally started out playing the bass trumpet, but didn't have an instrument. And he was borrowing the Royal Academy where we were studying at the time. He was borrowing their instrument. And then when we left, when we graduated, he was going to try and find a bass trumpet, but they're enormously expensive. And then he came across a secondhand flugelbone, which is essentially just like a large flugelhorn that uses a trombone mouthpiece and is an octave lower. And it's the most beautiful instrument. It makes such a lovely sound, and it fits much better actually than a bass trumpet.
Well, and you think I love that lower voice in there, because when you support all the higher harmonics of the mezzo soprano, B flats or C's, right? I mean, it really balances it out. I think it. Well, I hate to say this, but too much trumpet ensemble, it just is kind of destructive on my ears, anyways. But only because it's just all that high frequency. Yeah. But so, have you had anything commissioned for the group, or are you doing arrangements?
We're doing a lot of our own arrangements. We actually haven't commissioned anything yet. I'm sure we will, but at the moment we do a lot of our own arrangements. We do play some of the sort of standard repertoire. We love playing the Tomasi suite for 3 trumpets. And we love the Brandt Country Pictures for 4 trumpets, which is great. And, we play things like Gabrielli and all the kind of the classic brass ensemble pieces. But yes, we are lucky to have some good arrangers in the group. So we've done arrangements of Fauré's Pavane, Ravel's Piano Sonatine, which is amazing. It sounds so cool. And we've done arrangements of some Bartok piano pieces. And some Italian madrigals from the Renaissance, which is really, really lovely, 5-part madrigals.
Are you using any period instruments on those, or all written for modern? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of period instruments, of course, there's been to me, it's exploded over the last few years. The number of people using or incorporating natural trumpet, Baroque trumpet into their performance. Have you started doing that?
Not really. I didn't have the opportunity to even play a natural trumpet until I was doing my master's at the Royal Academy, and there it was a part of our degree. But by that point, I was already getting busier with concerts and things outside of studying. So I didn't really have enough time to kind of give it a proper go, unfortunately. And it also just wasn't, it's that I do love Baroque music, but it's not the focus of my focus of the repertoire. So it wasn't something that I carried on with. I'll leave that to the pros.
But I like that they made that a requirement of the degree of the
program.
It
was definitely interesting. And I probably could have been all right at it if I had enough time to practice it. but I just didn't. It just wasn't my priority. So
Ironically, the interview I just edited yesterday, and it's going to come out this week, is Josh Cohen. Of course, Josh is, I think, he's spectacular.
yeah.
And his interview, of course, there's a plug for it right here. But as I was editing again, I'm like, oh my gosh, this should be a master class. I mean, that's really what it was. It was more than just an interview, and he was giving history and context to all of that. And yeah, so I'll have to put that in show notes. That's a whole separate thing. So let me take a quick sponsor break here, and we'll get back to the interview. Of course, this is sponsored by ChopSaver. So here's what Dan Gosling has to say. ChopSaver, the natural, organic, herbal lip care product created by professional trumpet player Dan Gosling, created especially for the unique lip care needs of wind and brass musicians. Nothing soothes, heals, and protects sore, tired, chapped lips like ChopSaver. No tingle, not greasy, just makes your chops feel normal again, especially after a hard day of playing or a little bit of interview, right? You need ChopSaver even during an interview. ChopSaver is used and endorsed by some of the greatest names in the business, including Wayne Bergeron, Tom Hooten, Michael Sachs, and as we learned last week with the Rom Trio, Ron, Aaron, and Avis, even Avis, a piano player, even uses ChopSaver. ChopSaver is even recommended by dermatologists for their patients with chronic lip problems, so you know it's safe and effective, and it's a product anyone can use, musician or not. And again, to receive 20% off your next order, you can go to chopsaver.com and use the code HFL. So now back to Matilda. Okay, so I was doing the math a few minutes ago when you said the Eric Aubier trumpet competition, and you said you were 19 or so at the time. That means you're still really young.
I'm 25 now.
That's still really young. Yeah. And to have such a great career already underway, congratulations on all of that.
Thank you.
At what point did you decide I'm going to be a soloist?
So, I mean, I grew up playing in orchestras mainly. That was when the trumpet really, I started my musical journey on the piano. My mum is a piano accompanist and teacher, so that was sort of my first instrument. And then the trumpet really took over when I was in my teens, and I just sort of figured out how fun it was to play in wind bands and orchestras and jazz bands and brass ensemble. You know, there were so many different things you could do with the trumpet, and it was a much more sociable and fun section of the orchestra to be in, the brass section. So that was really when the trumpet became my favorite instrument and my focus. And then when I was about 17, 18, really when I was sort of in my last couple of years at school, is when I started doing competitions, local competitions. And that was when I sort of really explored the solo repertoire, because I had to find all these new pieces to play in competitions. And then, you know, winning some of the competitions, they then gave me either concerto opportunities with the local symphony orchestra or recitals. And again, just discovering the solo repertoire so much, and a lot of it very quickly. And I realized very, very quickly really that I loved doing the solo stuff. So and then I think I decided to go to a university rather than to a music college, and I did an academic music degree. So honestly, about 80% of my degree that I did was all writing essays and doing analysis and oral skills and keyboard skills and all of this, you know, the academic music side of things. And then performance was a small part of that. And then I sort of probably in my second year, I think I went into that degree knowing that I was going to come out of it and go and do a master's at the Royal Academy, and then go down the solo route. Mm-hmm. So probably from when I was about 20, I sort of pursued it in earnest, the solo career.
What kind of challenges have you met along the way as a soloist?
As a soloist, I mean, I would say that just being a solo trumpet player is always going to be tricky, just because there aren't as many opportunities, there aren't as many slots. You know, most orchestras might have a trumpet player, I mean, every couple of years, every 2, 3, you know, there's just not as many opportunities out there for us. So it's always going to be more challenging to fill the diary and to be able to sort of support yourself financially. So, you know, I love doing things like masterclasses and, you know, things like having the trumpet ensemble that can do some concerts a year and things like that. They're really nice ways to sort of make sure you've got enough going on. But in terms of other challenges, I think probably one of my biggest challenges was a mouthpiece change. When I was, I guess it was in 2018, it would have been. And I changed my mouthpiece in May. And I mean, it was the best thing I've ever done. And you know, I'm a completely different and much better trumpet player.
So what facilitated
for the
that?
Change. My professor at the time, and he's still my professor now, Håkan Hardenberger.
I've never heard that name. Who is that?
Yeah. Yeah. When he tells you that you need to change your mouthpiece, you listen. Yeah. So, and he gave me a lot of guidance on which mouthpiece to change to. But that was a tough 6 months. Really tough.
Was it an immediate switch? I'm done with this one. I'm gonna go to this new one.
Yeah, I mean, it was the kind of switch where basically I'd been working with him for, I think it was about 6 months. I'd been going over to Sweden for lessons at the same time as studying in London at the Royal Academy, and doing all the things that we'd been doing together. Everything had just got so much stronger. And I was playing previously on a Warburton mouthpiece and had been using the same mouthpiece for years and years and years. And it was just one that I think I was probably about 13 or 14, and my teacher said, "Here, play this mouthpiece." And I just played that mouthpiece, and that was that. And it got to the point where I'd basically outgrown that mouthpiece, and my lip was like slightly touching the inside of the cup. Because Warburtons have that very distinctive sort of triangular shaped cup. And so it was, you know, when I tried out these new mouthpieces, it was an instant. You could hear instantly the difference in the sound and the feel. But they require a lot of air, these mouthpieces. So, and I lost quite a few notes off my high register, which was very stressful for quite a long time. It's like, am I ever going to be able to play a top C ever again? But, you know, when you stick with it and get there eventually, and then it's so worth it.
Relatively the same equipment from the larger horns to the smaller?
Yes.
I mean, as far as the mouthpiece setup, pretty similar?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I use the same mouthpiece for C, B flat, and D and E flat. And then I have... It's basically the same mouthpiece, but with a cornet shank for my piccolo.
Yeah. You know, and it's funny. Of course, whatever works for you is not necessarily going to work for the next person. You know, I mean, there are people out there who will switch mouthpieces, you know, from one phrase to the next.
I know. Yeah.
But you know, I'm always thinking, well, what is the end result? Does it sound good? Then great, right? I mean, if that's what it takes to make it work. But you know, I remember, and I'm not going to say who, but I remember working a gig with somebody who said, "Oh, you should be able to play everything on one mouthpiece." And he was playing lead trumpet, and he said, "Yeah, you know, I should." And so he started to play Brandenburg on his B flat, large, you know, the big B flat, and the same mouthpiece. And wow. But he's like, everybody should be able to do that. I said, no. No, just you. I mean, you know, just you're the only one that can do that. But so how did you come by Håkan? How did you manage to get him as a teacher?
So I actually was on a course. It was a week-long course at Snape Maltings with Oldborough, the Britton Peers Foundation. And it was a week-long course with Håkan and Colin Curry. They have their duo. They brought out a CD, and it was basically before they had recorded the CD, and they were putting together this program, and they did a concert at the end of the week, and then did a couple of other concerts in the UK after that. And it was a week-long masterclass week. I mean, it was absolutely incredible. So it was literally, I think it was 5 trumpeters, 5 percussionists, Håkan and Colin, for an entire week. And we had, you know, group warm-ups and masterclasses, and we did trumpet ensemble things, and we did pieces for trumpet and percussion, and there was a concert at the end, and he very kindly gave me his email address and said, come and see me in Sweden. So that was, you know, the best. I mean, it was the best thing ever.
Yeah.
So,
and you're still studying with him. I mean, what does that look like? Is that every couple of months? Is it a weekly
yeah,
check-in?
so
Or?
I mean, I'm technically studying on it's an artist diploma course at the university that he teaches at in Sweden. And prior to the pandemic, I was flying out there every 4 to 8 weeks, depending. And there's a really lovely class of trumpet students there, and we get to work with a pianist who's excellent. I think he's been accompanying the trumpet class there for years, so he knows all the repertoire, and it's really fun to work with a pianist with Håkan. It's completely different from when you're just working alone. So that's really good.
How do you feel like your playing has changed since working with him? Is it so much
everything about it has changed?
Is it the trumpet itself, or the musical ideas, or both?
Both. I mean, I think one of the things that he really helped me with were the fundamentals. And I wouldn't say that I had a problem with my fundamentals before, but it's just his whole approach to them. And he sort of has this warm-up routine that I've incorporated into my routine now. And, you know, the way that he explains things, like before I met him, I never understood why trumpet players did bending, for example. I never understood the point of bending. I never really understood the point of pedal notes. I just thought, you know, what is this? Why do we do this? You know, but the way that he explains like why you do these things and the benefits of doing them, and then you incorporating that, even things like buzzing, incorporating that into the routine. It just, you know, you're aiming to build the most sort of stable, efficient way of playing. And I think he's definitely helped, you know, elevate that for me beyond anything else. And also just the technical things of like articulation and, you know, sound production and things like that. And yeah,
tell me,
everything, getting a big sound, a really big fat sound with lots of overtones, and, you know, just really focusing on all of those things.
I'm thinking one of the downsides of practicing, especially in the pandemic, right, when we're all in these small rooms, is sometimes you end up practicing and performing to a room where the wall is only, you know, a few feet away. It's like we forget that we should be playing in a concert hall setting or recital hall setting. Tell me a little bit about what a typical non-performance day is for you.
For me, well, I mean, they're all non-performance days at the moment.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. Well, but
it's very, I would say it's fairly normal. I wake up, I tend to do some form of movement. I like to go for runs, I've been doing a bit of sort of dumbbell workouts at home, or, you know, go for a nice walk. I like to get outside in the morning if I can. Sometimes I like to do a bit of boxing, which is fun. I'll do that in the morning, and then I tend to practice first thing after that, like after a shower and some breakfast. I make a green tea and I do my fundamentals routine, which takes at least an hour, probably an hour and a half. And then I'll take another break, make some more green tea, and then I tend to try and get the bulk of my practice done in the mornings. Just because otherwise, if I leave it till the afternoon, I'm never as focused as I am in the mornings. I'm definitely a morning person. And then in the afternoons, well, during the pandemic, I've been doing a part-time job actually for a book publishing company doing digital sales and marketing. So I've been doing that in the afternoons, and then mixing that in with more practice. So yeah, I've been keeping busy. It's good to have something to pay the bills at the moment.
Well, I even started, I think you guys call it supply teaching, but I started that a month or so ago, just trying to fill some of the days until we get back to doing what we like to do full time.
Absolutely. And it has been really good actually, because I have learned quite a lot of new skills, including I've been making video trailers for the new books. So I learned how to use Final Cut Pro and how to, you know, edit videos and stuff, which actually I think is going to be helpful with the, you know, the online presence and the websites and the social media and stuff. So
Well, you're already quite good at that. I mean, you know, you can't get on Instagram without seeing a post from you. That's great. I mean, there are people out there. Christopher Bill is somebody who I think, you know, I don't know if you know who he is, the trombone player. But there are people who are just all over social media. And I'm thinking, you know, it used to be up to maybe your manager would have been the one pre-social media who would try to get out and, you know, do PR. But
yeah,
now, as the artist, you get to do, I would say, probably 99% of that yourself, right?
absolutely. I think, I mean, you know, I wouldn't say I spend a huge amount of time doing it, or I don't spend a huge amount of time sort of planning it or thinking about it. I know some people, you know, plan out exactly what they're going to say and they sort of do content planning and making. I'm a bit more haphazard than that. It's a bit more sort of take it as it comes. But I think what people like about it, they like to see that kind of behind the scenes
That's it.
everyday life. They like to see, you know, I mean, probably 60% of my Instagram is just, you know, practice selfies and saying, you know, this is what I've been working on today and this is what I've been thinking about, and you know, this is how I learn a new piece, or this is how I practice single tonguing, or you know, people like to see the behind the scenes of the performance.
Um, Andrew Hitz, you know, the host of Brass Junkies. I don't know. Have you been on Brass Junkies yet?
No, I haven't. No.
But Andrew, I interviewed Andrew a couple of months ago, but he runs the Entrepreneurial Musician podcast. So I had contacted him and gone through some actual consulting with him. I mean, he was consulting for me, and I was asking him about social media. He goes, you know, people really want to see the face behind the brand. They don't want to, you know, like, so that was an awkward thing, is to think, uh-oh, now I've got to put my face out, you know, and when I'm advertising the podcast. So I've done that, and I've actually noticed a huge jump in followers. I mean, it's not huge, but for me, you know, it's pretty good. So yeah, there is real value. Your public wants to see you, right? I mean, you can't.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They
Um,
can't. The public, you know, they want to form a connection and they want to be invested in your journey. So it, you know, it's nice to be able to bring them along with you.
oh, I like the way you said that. That's very cool. Nice way of thinking of that. Um, So let's go back to is it jolly old England or merry old England? So you've been living in Munich since, did you say right before Brexit? Was that
Yeah,
2016?
November. No, as in the November 2020, right, just
Oh,
before
oh,
the hard Brexit deadline.
gotcha. Oh, that's right. The vote was in 2016.
The vote was into, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was working on a British ship, a P&O ship. Of course, you know, I was one of two Americans on that ship, and so
Fun.
all they were talking about was Brexit. And of course, you know, I was learning an awful lot about that at the time. But yeah, and not to get into politics, but I've got a friend who lives in Birmingham, not Birmingham, but Birmingham.
Mhm.
And talked to her recently. She was telling me about how things, this is non-political, but how things have still been shut down there. Are you experiencing kind of the same thing in Germany? Is there a,
Yes.
yeah?
Yeah, it's complete. Everything is closed still. I mean, we don't even have restaurants or, you know, let alone cinemas or theaters or, you know, concerts. Nothing going on here yet, which is a shame.
Well, I mean, you can get out and run. I mean, and
Could
probably
go for a run.
go to the grocery, right? But
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
about
You
it.
have to make an appointment if you want to go to a clothes shop or to a I don't know, hardware store or something like that. You have to book a slot.
Wow.
Yeah, it's quite intense over here still.
Yeah, see, I don't know how Americans would handle that. Well, yes, I do know how we would handle it, right? And, yeah. I'm not going to go any further on that. I've been pretty good about wearing my mask when I'm out
Yeah.
and not doing too much. But uh, okay, so even the reason I wanted to go back to England was brass band. Did you come up in the brass band tradition?
No, I didn't, unfortunately. I wish I had. I'm from the southeast, and although there are some brass bands in the south and the southeast, the tradition is very much more in the north of the country. Um, so I didn't grow up playing in the brass band tradition. I did play in brass bands growing up. I played in a local brass band for a couple of years, and then I played in one in London for a few years while I was still in school. But no, I didn't grow up in the tradition.
Mm-hmm. Uh, what were you doing when you started playing? What kind of groups were you playing with? It was just school
Yeah, it
bands?
started off with school. It was mostly my county, mostly orchestra stuff. I was in the county wind band, jazz band, everything that they had, orchestra. Yeah.
And
And
who were,
then, yeah,
sorry,
and
go
then
ahead.
onto the national, I was in the National Youth Orchestra for 3 years. So that was really great as well.
Who were you listening to back then? Who was really beginning to influence and inspire you?
The first trumpet players I listened to were the ones that my dad loved. So he used to listen to a lot of Arturo Sandoval and also Herb Alpert.
Hmm.
They were the kind of two trumpeters that I grew up listening to, from when I was, tiny. And then, I mean, Håkan, Sergey, Maurice, obviously, Eric, yeah, all the greats.
Um, E- Eric Aubry, he's got, I think, a handful of videos on YouTube, but him and Ole Edvard are two that I think, at least around here, students don't know a whole lot about him. So I asked them, you need to tell them, go to listen to Sergey, listen to Matilda, listen to Allison, right? And Tina.
Yeah,
But, I think those guys they're fantastic. I
yeah.
mean, just what great players. I don't know if they ever come stateside, uh, but I would love it to be able to get a opportunity to hear them live. You mentioned Oklahoma earlier, so you've been to the States, well, in Miami, but you've been to the States a few times.
Yeah, I have. I've been to the States more on holiday, I think, than I have with for professionally. But I had a really great week in Oklahoma with the Oklahoma City Philharmonic,
Hmm.
um, playing the Aritunian, which
Hmm.
was great. And I had the opportunity to give a couple of master classes at the universities, which was really, really great. That's probably my favorite masterclass experiences in Oklahoma,
Hmm.
working with those guys. They were really, really great, very receptive, and it was fun to work with them.
Of course, I think you have an accent. You probably think I have an accent, but I'm thinking in Oklahoma, did they have an accent? Was it something? Well, no, I guess you'd have to get down into our deep south, like Alabama. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, I didn't notice, but
okay.
then that's probably just because I just hear an American accent.
Yeah.
Can't
Yeah.
distinguish between the different regions so
So
well.
coming here on holiday vacation, where did you go? What did you like
So
to do
I've
here?
spent most of my time in California. I went to LA for a week, and I've been up to San Francisco area, the Bay Area, quite a lot because my partner worked in Stanford for a year in the law faculty, just like a year as I think it was like a research assistant.
Hmm.
So whenever I came over to visit him, I would stay there, and we popped over to Hawaii a couple of times, which was awesome.
Popped over. There's no
Very
such thing
cool.
as popping over. That's still like a 6 hour or
It's like
so
five
flight.
hours.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's yeah.
So, but you haven't visited the Wild West. I mean, the huge national parks. So you've been to the
No.
metropolitan areas,
Yeah,
basically.
I've been to Florida as well. Obviously, we met in Miami, but I've been to West Palm Beach as well. And I've been up to New York. That's probably most recently. I was in New York for New Year coming into 2020. So
Hmm.
very recently,
Hmm.
which was really fun.
Do you enjoy the travel?
Yeah, I love traveling. And I mean, I think that's one of the coolest things about being a soloist is that you get to go places that you otherwise would never have been. I don't think I probably would never have been to Oklahoma without that week of concerts. And getting to go to South Africa on tour was just incredible because I was in Durban, then I was in Johannesburg, and then Cape Town. So I've always, South Africa is one of those places that I think everyone should go because it's so amazing, so beautiful, and there's so much history there. But it's a long, long way. I think it's a 12-hour flight
Oh, wow.
from the
Yeah.
UK. It was a really long way.
Yeah.
But it's bizarre because the time zone hardly changes because it's just
Oh,
straight down. I think it's like 1 or 2 hours difference from the UK.
Mm-hmm.
So you travel all that way and nothing changes. It's very different from when you're going across to the US. But I didn't have any plans to go there on
Have you been
holiday.
to Australia? Have you been out there yet?
No, not yet. I would love to, definitely.
I saw John Foster was posting that they're starting to travel and perform a little bit more
Yeah,
within the
seem
country.
to
Yeah,
be opening up. Yeah, I know they've been having their summer festivals and things. A
yeah.
lot of them have been going ahead. The other place I'd love to go with the trumpet is Japan. They have
Mhm.
such a great, brass playing culture out there. And I think that would be really fun.
How many times have you been looked at funny when you're practicing in an airport? Right, you get
Oh,
this strange
so
look.
many. I've got some great stories of, playing in airport toilets on the floor and, sitting on my suitcase.
Well,
with
wait a
a
minute. The toilet. I mean, I'm usually sitting in the waiting area, but
Yeah, I tried. I always would start there, but I often get shooed away.
oh, so were you using a practice mute, or just playing?
Yeah,
And
silent
they were
brass
still.
system.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Have you ever done that on a flight? Taken your horn out and
No,
practice on a flight?
I've never done it actually on a flight or a train, I don't think. I've definitely done it in like train stations and airports.
Yeah.
Yeah. Quite a lot of bathrooms wherever I am, really. They have a
Yeah.
good acoustic.
Yeah. Oh, isn't that funny? That's true. I remember the first time really feeling awkward about practicing in public, as far as I think it was at a laundromat. And you knew you're going to get some strange looks there, but after a while, you realize nobody really cares.
Yeah.
And so you just do it. And so, now, and not like I fly a lot, but I usually do practice or play a little bit in the airport while I'm waiting. And yes, people give you strange looks, but no, nobody really cares, right?
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah,
it's, you've got nothing else to do.
yeah.
So.
So any experiences that were like either ridiculous, I can't believe I'm here, this is happening to me, sort of thing? You know, I don't know, forgotten luggage. You forgot your horn, forgot your mouthpiece, showed up at the wrong
Oh,
orchestra.
do have a good story, which is so the story starts with it's a concert that Tina Ting Helseth was supposed to be playing in, and she had to pull out for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why. So this was 5 days before the concert, and I got called up. It was a concert for International Women's Day up in Manchester, so they wanted a female trumpet player. And I had played a different piece by the same composer. It was a female composer. I played one of her other pieces for trumpet. So she recommended me because she knew that I knew her style of writing, and I had to learn this concerto in 5 days. So that in itself is quite a good story. But actually, what the real funny part of the story is that I traveled up to Manchester for the rehearsal, which was a few days before the concert. So I was going back down to London in between. And I had taken my trumpets out of one trumpet case and put them into another case. So I had my B flat and my C with me, and the piece was on C trumpet. But I have this thing where I take my B flat trumpet with me wherever I go, because if my lips, I do tend to normally warm up on the C, but if my lips for some reason aren't feeling great, I always have to have my B flat with me just to do some lower things, and it really helps me. So I always take my B flat with me wherever I go. And luckily I did, because in the process of transferring my trumpets from one case to the other, I didn't notice that my first valve slide had come off my C trumpet and was in the other case in London. And I didn't notice this until I arrived in Manchester. I'd, got the taxi from the train station to the church, and I was just going to warm up in the little side room, took my C trumpet out of the case and went, oh my God, like, what am I going to do? And it was a Sunday morning, like 10 a.m., I didn't really know anyone in Manchester. I mean, they do have a conservatoire, so I was thinking, oh my God, I need to find someone who can like bring me a trumpet. And the rehearsal starts in 20 minutes, half an hour, what am I going to do? And then I realized that I could just take the slide off my B flat trumpet and put it on my C trumpet. So I took just that little bit, just the first valve slide off, put it on the C trumpet, and all my Ds were a bit flat, and I just had to lift them up, and it worked fine.
You know what? I don't think I've ever tried to put one slide from one trumpet to the other. It's a wonder it fit, right? I mean, it's not going to happen with every horn.
Well, it was lucky it wasn't the other way around, because if it had been...
Oh, right.
Yeah, because the B flat's just ever so slightly bigger, it did fit. But I think if it had been the other way around, it wouldn't have.
So isn't it funny? That only happens once, right? I mean, because then probably every time you pack your case after that,
you double check.
You've got
all the bits attached.
Yeah. Brass quintet I was playing with, I don't know, this has been maybe 15 years ago. We had an outdoor summer concert about 3 hours north of here. And we all met and carpooled up there. And this is pre-Google Drive, pre-USB, pre-PDF, right? None of the music was. And we get up there, and my tuba player says, I left my music in Indianapolis.
Oh, my God.
And, they said they saw this vein pop out of my forehead. I was furious. I was. And there was no way to drop box. There was no way to access any of that. He goes, I'm just going to play the tuba, or play the trombone part down an octave. He goes, I think I remember most of it, but he goes, when I don't, I'll just play the trombone part down. And the whole performance, I'm just thinking what a disaster this is. We finished the performance, and of course people were coming up, oh, great job, you guys sounded great. And it's like, they didn't know the difference. I should have just relaxed and, but that was the last time I ever, went to a gig with a quintet without taking everybody's music, an extra copy, right?
Really? I do the same with the trumpet ensemble. I tend to keep all the music, and then if someone wants to practice something, I'll scan it to them and send them a digital copy, just because it's just safer, isn't it, to have one person with all the music?
Right.
Yeah.
Do you play from memory? Do you perform from memory?
I do. I actually love performing from memory. It was something my mum used to encourage me to do. Particularly, I just always remember her saying that, because she was a pianist, and pianists, they perform everything from memory. I think it was just sort of ingrained in her from a young age that performing from memory was a good thing to do. Mm-hmm. And I found that I love performing from memory, because just somehow taking away the physical barrier of the music stand, it really helps with that connection with the audience. And it's really nice to not have somewhere that your eyes and body are sort of pointing towards and focusing on. And it's really nice just to be able to play out to the hall and out to the people, and make eye contact with the audience as well. But obviously it really depends on the piece. If I'm performing the Haydn, the Hummel, the Neruda, the Aritunian, I would never use the music for any of those. And pieces like Honegger and Trada and Legende, and quite a lot of the piccolo pieces that I would play, like the Marcello Oboe Concerto or the Bach Vivaldi and things like that. The Telemann, I have all of those. The Hindemith I have as well. Just like the sort of the standard repertoire pieces, I would say I've got under my fingers. And then fun encores as well, things like the Goethe Concert Etude and the sort of the Gershwin 3 Preludes, and the kind of fun pieces that you put at the end of a concert.
Did I see you just posted the Goethe?
Yeah, there
Yeah.
was an old clip resurfaced. I think one of the kind of trumpet band or trumpet lovers pages resurfaced this old video, which was fun. I hadn't seen that for years.
Now I'm forgetting, was that with orchestra?
No, that was with piano.
Oh, with piano. That would
Yeah.
be a fun piece to do with orchestra. I don't know if there's an
Yeah,
orchestra
there is.
accompaniment. Yeah.
It's better with piano. It's hard to get together with orchestra
Hmm.
because it's crazy fast.
Yeah, but I'm thinking about it. What a great encore, right? That's kind of a real crowd
Yeah,
pleaser, like Flight of the Bumblebee, right? Fast and
exactly.
flashy,
Yeah.
right?
And the ending is so cheeky. All
Oh,
the audiences always do like a little
right,
laugh at the end, which is fun.
right. Um, well, thinking about teaching, do you do any teaching? Are you even online right now? Are you working with anyone?
I don't have any regular students. I do master classes
Hmm.
and things like that, which I really, really enjoy. I absolutely love giving master classes. And I recently just did a series of workshops, sort of masterclassy workshop things with young musicians in the UK, which was really, really lovely and really was really fun to have like a series of them. I think we did three spread over 5 or 6 weeks. So that was
Hmm.
really, really nice to kind of see the progress between. And it was, we was more engaging and invested in it more than just a one-off. So that
Right.
was I really enjoyed doing that and would love to do some more things like that. But no, I don't have any weekly students or anything like that.
Hmm. Of course, with the online stuff, doing master classes, doing lessons, that's going to stick around. That's going to be here, I think, right? Even when we get
Yeah.
back to whatever normal is, that's proven that it works, right? I mean, of course, we're online right now. This works. Normally, when I would do interviews, it was in person, right? That's how you and I met.
Yeah.
Um, so, wow, this has been fun. I'm looking at the time, thinking we've had like an hour kind of zoom by here. No pun intended with Zoom, but um, let me do another little promo here, and then we'll start to wrap up. But of course, thanks again to ChopSaver for sponsoring not just this interview with Matilda, but all of March's interviews. And again, if you want to save 20% on your next ChopSaver order, you can go to ChopSaver.com and use the code HFL. And again, that'll get you 20% off. This interview will end up tomorrow on YouTube and will live on in perpetuity. And I'll take the audio and I'll put that on SoundCloud as well. And of course, the regular pre-recorded interviews, those are still going on. You can find all of those on all the podcast platforms. And while you're out there, if you can go to Apple, this is not for you, Matilda. You can do this if you want to, but if you guys want to go to Apple and leave a star rating and a review, I would appreciate that. You want to sign up for the newsletter, you can go to studioHFL.com and you can see dates and times for upcoming live interviews and other releases there. And of course, you can visit the merchandise store and get that really cool shirt that I showed you earlier. So again, thanks to ChopSaver for the sponsorship for this. Thank you, Matilda, for being here. It's as I'm not trying to make fun of Brits, but I love that you guys say it was lovely to see you again.
It was.
Right? And
Yeah, absolutely.
it was lovely to see you again. And I look forward to the time, whether it's an ITG or a live performance somewhere, another time where we can, actually shake hands and say hello to each other again.
Yeah, that would be really nice.
If shaking hands is ever going to become a thing
Yeah,
again,
we can do an
right?
elbow
Right,
bump.
right. But thank you so much for being here. And
Thank you for inviting me back on the podcast.
yeah, glad to have you. So hang on just a second. I'm going to sign off here and let's see. So again, everybody, thanks for being here. Oh, hang on. There was a comment here. Derek Watson. Hi, Matilda. You learned so many pieces. How do you work on a new piece? Oh, can we talk about that real quick? Derek's question.
Yes, absolutely. How do I work on a new piece? Very, very slowly. I would say I probably half all of the metronome markings. and then gradually work my way up. So slowly and quietly is the way for me to learn a new piece, and yeah, very gradually increase the speed, and then only when I'm there with the speed do I then work in things like dynamics and accents and the lip tiring stuff.
Do you do a lot of listening ahead of time?
I try not to, actually. I'm part of the camp that doesn't. I would subconsciously copy what I hear. I do that, which is great, as being a student, and when your teacher says, do it like this, and they play it and you can do it. That's good. That's really helpful. But it's not so helpful when you want to create your own artistic interpretations of pieces, because I would definitely subconsciously copy whatever I heard. So I do listen to pieces sometimes at the very start of learning a piece that I don't know. So for example, with the Zimmerman, it's quite an outrageous piece. So I wanted to listen to that a few times just to see, and follow along with the score, just to see kind of how it goes. And
Right.
that was before I kind of had started working on it. But I do think that at the start of the process, I personally prefer not to listen to 5 different recordings, or my heroes playing it. Also a little intimidating, but it's good to try it out your way first, and also gives you the freedom to explore different interpretations of the same phrase. You can try out different things and see what you like, before going, okay, so and so plays it like this, so that's how I am going to play it.
It's interesting that you say that, because, of course, when Håkon came out with the Charliers, right, it was performed in ways that I thought, I've never heard it phrased that way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I love his Charliers.
they're great. And of course, I hope he gets all the way through the book. But then, he doesn't either, because, it means he doesn't have time to work on those anymore. But yeah, I could see where where you're talking about taking that time, right, and just focusing on finding your own phrasing, or maybe finding something you're not influenced, that maybe I should breathe here, right? I mean, you start to, or I'm going to shape this note this way, right? You are making your own decisions along the way. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you might put a performance out there that is remarkable. Not that it wouldn't have been otherwise, right? But it'd be like, wow, this is Matilda's performance. And
Yeah, I think
it
that's the
becomes the
goal.
benchmark.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
Right?
you don't ever want to be a copy of someone else. You
Yeah.
want to have your own individual sound and style and interpretation. So
Yeah. Well, you're a wonderful player. It was a joy to hear you play live, and you're a wonderful person too. It's always nice to chat with you. So again, hang on. I'm going to log off here again. Thanks for watching, and be sure to check out studiohfl.com for